Hello everybody, I'm Steve and welcome to Green Side Up. Autumn is definitely upon us. You can see the grey skies. We know it's starting to get a little bit chilly in the mornings, but the daytime temperatures over the next 2 weeks are still in the 17s and 18s here in northern England, Cumbria to be exact. So got to make best advantage of that. Now autumn, I found, I'm here all year, every day. There's only a couple of days I miss. But over the course of the year, you see the summer gardeners come sort of around the end of March into April. And then at this time of the year, there might be 3 or 4 gardeners down today. Next week, there'll only be 2 or 3. And they eventually fade away. And the only people that are left through the majority of the winter, sort of between October and March all year, are myself and the poultry keepers. And that's all we see. And that's such a shame. There are so many polytunnels on this plot that just remain empty and unused, and there's twice as many greenhouses, all again the same, unused and damn fly, unused and just left until next year. I say that's such a shame because yes, it is a season of shutting down. Plants are shutting down. These are finished and they just want emptying. They're still carrying on. But I've planted so many seedlings, planted so many plants, these tunnels will be full. Most of the beds at the front will be full with something and it keeps going. But you've got to plan for the next few months. There's a good 6 months now between now and next spring. That's half of your year. So I don't understand this stopping for winter. I say many veg gardeners do. Other normal gardeners, shall we say, who do normal plants and veg, do the whole kit and caboodle, many more of those people will stay gardening all year, especially in your back garden. But veg growers, for some reason, tend to hibernate at this time of the year. Keep going, keep coming down and gardening, get some jobs done, ready for spring. So earlier this year, I helped a neighbour remove an old deck of theirs, and I recycled all the timber, took all the nails and screws out of it, cleaned it up, and then I jet washed it all, fetched it down to the allotment, dried it in one of the polytunnels in early spring, and then I've stored it out the way under plastic to keep it dry. It got slightly damp underneath the plastic, but it's now in here in the polytunnel where it'll dry off properly over the next couple of weeks. And this is a wet weather job now. This timber will need protecting and preserving before I use it, because I'm going to be making new raised beds for the back of the plot here, and they'll be along the format that I have at the front of the plot. I'm not going to show you that now, but it's going to go in this bed here. It should make me 6 nice large beds that say the same size that I've got at the front of the plot, and that will fill this middle bed, and then there's just the one beyond it to deal with on another occasion. But this is a wet weather job, and what I mean by that is the days that I come down here moving forward from now, if it's rain and I can't get on the soil outside and do work out there, then this is a job that as a fallback, I've come down for that day, it's turned rainy and wet, or it was too wet from overnight rain, or it's actually raining, but I can still come down here and get a job done ready for next year. I can get these painted, I can stack them all up in here in this polytunnel that I'm turning into a workshop for the winter, and they can all dry off and be ready to go outside and make the beds for when I'm at that stage outside and ready for them. So this is part of the key thing of having a polytunnel, or several like I have, is that you can use them for multiple things. When these last crops come out, you can see I've still got a load of tomatoes to come out here. These boards are on pallets, and when these melons finally come up in the next week or so, the pallets will run the full length there, so I'll have a good work area to paint those and move them and get the jobs done. So what I'm trying to do at this time of year is I'm trying to write lists of all the jobs that I need to do and separate them into wet day and dry days. The days that I can get out on the plot, I'll do those jobs. Otherwise, I come in here and do other jobs. I've got all this stuff to paint, and then on a dry day, I can go and assemble them. I've got benching I want to build in here, and other things like that. I mean, I've just laid this path, but it's not laid properly. So on a wet day, I can come back and address this and put this in properly if that's what I need to do on that particular day. But I can also make protection frames. I can build cold frames in here because I want one just outside along that side. That can all be built in here and painted, ready to go out as well. So write your lists, write the list of the jobs. Imagine that you're a month away from planting in spring and the jobs that you need to do. Scribble them all down, space them out over winter, get them done. If you're going to need to dig that bed in spring ready for planting, dig it now and cover it. It's done. It'll only need a light forking over in spring, and you've therefore made your job that much easier next year. If you haven't got a polytunnel, consider getting one, or consider getting a greenhouse, or even just a shed somewhere where you can shelter from rain, or somewhere where you can actually do some work on those wet days. Because what tends to happen is, if you don't come down for a week, it's harder to get yourself motivated to come down for another week when the weather's just a little bit iffy. But if you work through it all the time and you're used to it, you become weathered and used to a little bit of rain, a little bit of cold, a little bit of wind. If you're used to that, you'll continue to come down and get the jobs done, and it just makes your next year easier. So start writing those lists now, those jobs you know you need to do. Put them into wet and cold days, or wet and dry days, and work from there. I mean, obviously there's no point putting a polytunnel up if it's a force 9 gale. So again, if you're going to put a polytunnel up, do it on a dry, warm day. It can also be a good time now to start thinking about what seeds you want to grow next year. While all your crops and harvests this year, and I trust and I hope that you all had a good harvest this year and are still taking stuff home, which would be brilliant if you are. While all that's fresh in your mind and you can think of the varieties that really worked for you, or ones that were a little bit iffy, didn't quite work, and you maybe need to change it or need to change its growing area, now is the perfect time to write it all down on a bit of paper. Think, well, that bit of garden was in shade where I put those cauliflowers. They didn't do well. I need to put them over here. So you can start to work these things out now. Start looking online for seed companies, getting the catalogues through, and over the coming months you can put a list together of the seeds that you want to grow for next year. It's the same thing with fruit trees now. We're approaching and getting close to bare root season now, where your plants that you might want to buy, or your fruit trees or fruit bushes, can be bought bare root. They're much cheaper and they establish better bare root. That's my personal opinion. Perfect time to do that. So if you've got some planning, if you can see the wood for the trees and work out in advance what you're going to need, you can start planning for that. So it's certainly not a tools down time of the part of the year, it's a tools up, and get those catalogues in, get ordering for next year, and get those things sorted, get done in advance and be ready for it. So here's my bug burn area and my pond, and a little tip I've been given from a neighbour at home to help stop the pond freezing over completely, especially if you've got fish in there or amphibians that need to breathe, is to put a couple of plastic bottles in with just a little bit of gravel in the bottom of the bottles, and that will help them just sort of bob around and float around the pond and keep small areas ice free during the winter. So that's a handy little tip and one I'll be doing. The pond itself is doing really well. A lot of the green has come out of it now, and I think that's due in course down to these oxygenating plants I've put in there. Some are below surface, you can't see them, but there's a lot in there now. And my lily pad has absolutely delighted me this year. I've probably had 7 or 8 flowers off it. It's only a very small area covered, so I'm thinking I might get another one, a different colour, to go maybe over in that corner next year. We'll see. But yeah, overall very happy, and it's been a very lively, active area. So start thinking about your lists and jobs that you need to do over the next 6 months. As I said earlier, plan as if it's a month away from planting in spring, and write down those jobs that you need to do, and you can spread them out over winter, spreading the load through the rough and bad weather. Think about an undercover growing space if you haven't got one already, about a polytunnel, or even just shelter in a big shed, or even a gazebo that you can cover with plastic, somewhere where you can work out of the weather, or somewhere where you can shelter just for an hour as a storm passes or something. Think about those things. Don't forget to also think about your seeds that you're going to do for next year. If you can, draw up a bed plan of your plot and actually physically write on it, this is where I'm putting my cauliflowers next year. And you can work out how many plants you need, how many seeds you'll need to purchase, what type of seeds you'll need to purchase. Have a look at the seed companies online, order their catalogues up, and you can sit in the comfort of your own home on a Sunday afternoon and work out what seeds you want to buy and from where. Write the lists and order them. Don't forget about your bare root plants. You might want any sort of fruit trees or fruit bushes or roses or any of those things that you may or may not want. Also, don't forget about your spring bulbs. You can plant dafts right now and tulips. You can plant tulips all the way up until January. I've done that before. So thinking about those sorts of things. But get this list of jobs done, prioritise them, separate them into wet day and dry day jobs, and where you can achieve those and get them done. And you know, it'll stand you in good stead for next year, and you'll have the jump on what you need to do next year. And this just makes your job and life so much easier, and makes this become from a job to a more of a pleasurable hobby. And then things get exciting. You've got the time to get excited about things and to enjoy them as well. So anyway, there's my top tips for autumn. Don't hibernate away. Don't be a summer gardener. Be an all year round gardener, and get as much as you can done. Keep a connection with your plot and your growing space and your soil, and keep after it and keep looking after it. And it'll look after you next year. So anyway, that's it for today. Look after yourselves, everyone. Stay safe, and I'll see you all very, very soon. Ta-ra now.